Today I can sit in front of you to speak about my story. That story has started in the bed of my mother. Welcome to my podcast, The Survivor, Surviving Witches and Warlocks, Transcending Traumatic Experiences. I almost lost my life because of a certain system very far off that belly in the United States of America. That system, people call it witchcraft, toxicity, hexing. So it has different names in different countries, but the pattern are the same. To start my story, I want to define certain terms I will be using throughout the story. Most of the time, I talk about karmic people. People are called karmic are people who have been using witchcraft to get ahead in life. That's what they say. So they do things in the spiritual realms to siphon energy from other people, to siphon life out of people, and use it for their own benefit. I will also use the term blood relative. Blood relative are people I refer to and with whom I'm sharing the same ancestor. Most of the time, those are people I used to call family, but I do no longer consider them to be family, based off what I will tell you in my story. I will also talk about past friends. Past friends are people I used to call friends in the past. They are no longer my friends. I have cut ties with them. I will also use the term workplaces. Workplaces are places I have worked, been trained, or studied. I will also use the term witchcraft, voodoo. I want people to make a difference between voodoo and witchcraft voodoo. Voodoo as a religion, when you are a practitioner of that religion, you are not supposed to harm people. So witchcraft voodoo is using voodoo for witchcraft, using voodoo to do things that karmic people do to siphon people's energy or siphon lives out of people. So today, the system I'm talking about is sometimes making people uncomfortable. Many people don't want to talk about it because they say it's the unseen, and people who talk about it are labeled crazy. I can assure you that I'm not crazy. Of course, people who are involved in my story did madness spells against me because they wanted me to become mad. But by the grace of the Creator who made me and who protected me, and because of whom I am in front of you today, I'm not crazy. In fact, if I'm speaking this story, if I'm telling you about my story, it's because I was asked to do so. In reality, I'm not a person who wants to be in front, like to be the spotlight in things, or most of the time, I lived a discreet life. But with what I have been through the last 37 years, my Creator, who made me and who has protected me during that whole time, has asked me something to do. He asked me to heal, to rest, heal, and share my story. The story is not just about the trauma, because I want people to know about that system. Because unfortunately, I think 20% of people in the world were like me. They didn't know about that system. They didn't know how it was operating. And sometimes they were not aware of the fact that certain people can be doing it in a certain way, and siphon their energy or siphon their lives out of them. Most of the time we think witchcraft is just about African descent people. Like it's just about people who are black or people who have been raised, who were born or raised on the African continent. But that's not the case. In fact, in my entire story, I was attacked by people of African descent, people of European descent, people of Asian descent, and people of American descent. So throughout the story, I want viewers and listeners to do something. I want them to identify patterns that they can recognize in their own communities, workplaces, friendships, groups, and even in their families. I also want them to share the story so that we raise awareness about that system and how it operates. I want them finally to do the inner work, because if we want that system to collapse by itself, we need to work on ourselves. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode, for viewing this first episode of my podcast. See you in the next episode of The Survivor, Surviving Witches and Warlocks, Transcending Traumatic Experiences.